Hey, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my photo chats. So today I'm going to talk about street photography. Explain. I had to do a talk or a little photo walk for a street photography workshop down in Denver as part of a street gallery exhibit that I was a part of, and I put together a list of all of the things that I know about street photography. What it is, what it isn't, how I define it, how people typically do define it, how to approach it, how to deal with people who are somewhat confrontational, which how I would suggest is rarely ever happening. And at least in America, I have had zero problems with people feeling like they don't want to be photographed. I've had some people give me looks and wonder, and I've smiled, but I haven't had any confrontations. And I think that's a good example of, if you're working, you're kind of a joyful being out there working and photographing. If anybody asks, the number one thing I tell people is, if anybody asks, just say, oh, I love this city. I'm just photographing all the people and everything. I just love everything about it. I want to send photos to my friends and family. Who's going to say no to that? You're not necessarily photographing them in some compromising position. You're just photographing the city. And it's a positive thing, and you're full of joy. And that joy comes through. So I put together this list, and I think that list is a really smart thing for anybody who's interested in street photography to go through, because there's a lot of questions online. Is this street photography? I photographed a mannequin in a window. Is that street photography? Maybe. It's a human element. There's something about humans that made that. It is a place that's seen from a public place, so I have a pretty broad sense of what qualifies as street. If you're shooting on the beach, it's street. If you're shooting inside a coffee shop, that's street. If you're photographing anywhere that people gather in public, it's street. And if anybody says, well, can you use them? Can you photograph that? There is no right to privacy in public. There's no expectation that you will not be photographed in public. And it's a tough thing to go talk to somebody about and tell them, oh, I have a right. But the truth is, you do have a right. There is no expectation of privacy in public. And if you want to put it inside of a gallery and sell it for $1 million, you can. And if you want to put it and publish it in a book, you can. If you want to put it on the cover of the book, you can. The only place you can't put it is in a Coca-Cola ad or an ad for anything else, because ads need a model release signed saying it's going to be used for commercial use. You could say, but I'm selling the book. But the book is art, and the book is allowed to be sold as art. The only thing you can't do is take that book cover that you put somebody's picture on and put that into an ad to sell the book, because then it becomes an ad. You might need to get a release for things that are art, but you're using them to promote the art. But other than that, can you sell the book all day long? Yes. Can you have their picture on the cover? You can. Most publishers will say use a photo that you have a release for, or use one that doesn't show a face. But the point is, we have street photography as a way to document our world, to make it clear who we are. What is this place that we live in, and what does it look like today? And it's a fascinating genre to be able to go and say, I have no subject. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to go walk around and see what I find, and find subjects that you can actually make strong photographs out of. It's a fascinating documentary world. The only thing I suggest is, don't show everything. If you're photographing and you see somebody walking across the street and you want to practice getting it in focus and framing it, you can, but I don't need to see that. Good street photography is a tap on the shoulder and say, hey, take a look at that. And it better be worth the turn. If it's somebody walking, if it's somebody standing, you wouldn't point that out to me. If you wouldn't point it out to me in person as we're walking along, then don't post it, don't show it. Make your photograph the one that is a storytelling photograph. Look at that little laughter that they are sharing. Look at that little moment. Look at that little silliness, or look at that little bit that's funny, or a little bit sad, or whatever. Anyway, street photography is a really, really fun thing to make, and I'll put a link to the, here comes the sun. I'll put a link to the street photography explained in the show notes, and you can take a look at that. All right, that's today's photography talk. Hey, if you're enjoying this, hit the subscribe button. If you can support it, the Patreon. Thanks to all my supporters. I appreciate you. I'll be back next week. We'll talk more photography. As always, here's the good light. Look at that light.